everybody, and welcome to the Pip and Dodds podcast featuring the great Gary Ellerson, the former Badger and Packers running back. He is on Spectrum News 1 with Leroy Butler and Dennis Krause. He's at 105.7 FM, The Fan. The Big Show, 2 to 6. He is the catalyst. And we have the Packers historian, John Dodds, one of the all-time greats. And we also have the Green Bay Packers at 8-2 after taking care of Carolina. Another nail-biter, 24-16 at Lambeau Field into the bye. And next up, San Francisco. First loss suffered on Monday night, coming at the hands of the Seattle Seahawks with Russell Wilson. And, of course, that game on Sunday following the bye has been moved to an evening tilt. Gary, your impressions of what went on at snowy, cold Lambeau Field against those Panthers?
Well, I thought it was a great game. You know, I think if you look at the Green Bay Packers, I mean, they're a team still, I think, in a work in progress. I mean, who would ever thought, right, this team is 8-2, but there's 2 games now where Aaron Rodgers hasn't thrown for any touchdown passes. And I think that's rare. I mean, if you look at Aaron Rodgers' career, I mean, it's really all been about Aaron Rodgers, and that's how this team normally progresses. But right now it's about this one kid, Aaron Jones, 33. Man. I mean, he gets it done. He gets you 3 rushing touchdowns. Didn't get a lot of carries, didn't get a lot of touches, 13, but didn't catch a lot of balls either. But I think when you look at this team, it is now revolving, really, I think, around 2 running backs in Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones.
John, they're winning close games. That has to be an encouraging sign. What was your perspective? What was your biggest takeaway from that game? And I know we're going to talk about 2-point conversion and last play, but generally speaking, to start.
I think overall the Green Bay Packers are an above-average team, but they're 100% healthy. And it seems like the whole year they've been absolutely living right in terms of playing other teams. Kansas City without Mahomes, Carolina without their DBs, their starting DBs. They're playing Dallas without their offensive tackles. The Packers have been relatively healthy. The one time they lost in Lambeau was against the Eagles, and that's when Bulaga went down early. Jamal Williams, who's become a very important piece, got the concussion on the cheap hit helmet to helmet at about the first play of the game, was knocked out of the Eagle game. And then Devontae Adams was injured from that game. They couldn't adjust to it. They're relatively healthy for the first time since 2014. 2014, they had the same starters from week 1 against Seattle in the opener to the Seattle championship game. Other than A.J. Hawk, I think, was the only one that year he just kind of hit the wall on his career, and they subbed him. But other than that, total health. They haven't had that in 4 years. They're having it so far, knock on wood, this year, and they're 8-2 to show.
Gary, 18.5 sacks, Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith. They get pressure, they get some sacks, they get turnovers. This is a defense that obviously to this point has not been able to stop the run, except maybe against Chicago. They break down, they have defensive breakdowns, receivers come free, they can't cover a tight end, but they seem to do enough. Right. Is that the key to this defense?
Right.
They've got to get turnovers and sacks.
Right. They give up a ton of yards, Pip. And so when you look at this team, you don't be alarmed by all the yards that they're giving up. They seem to make the big plays when they have to with Preston Smith and with Zadarius Smith. I mean, they get a lot of penetration too up front with Clark. I mean, the 2 defensive backs I like a lot, Kevin King. You look at Jerry Alexander, they're good corners. I think Alexander's going to be a Pro Bowl. Kevin King is having a really good year as well. Been banged up a lot, but I think this off week is going to help him. They're pretty solid with Amos in the back end and also with the rookie Savage. So they give up a ton of yards, but they've been able to limit opponents to field goals. They're not getting touchdowns. They're not getting scored on. So it is almost bend but don't break, but it feels like to me that I would like for them to be a little bit better than they are, because when it comes down to the playoffs, it's one and done. And you just never know when that one guy comes in and kicks that walk-off field goal for you and you lose. I mean, we witnessed that really at Lambeau Field before with Brett Favre when they played the Giants.
And the reference to Jamal Williams is key because as a tandem, they're really good. We've talked about this forever, Gary. I know you'll agree. Aaron Jones is not built like you were in the heyday. You know, he's not rock solid. He doesn't really I don't think you want him to have too many carries, and yet he's electrifying, certainly a back that we haven't seen in quite some time in Titletown. John, Packers offense, a couple of things that, to me, I found encouraging in addition to 33. What about Jimmy Graham? He stepped up and actually caught the ball and had some yak after it was all over.
That's right. Jimmy Graham doesn't have the speed he used to. I mean, he's definitely a player on the decline. But having Devontae Adams back and then having the threat of Jones out of the backfield, I think spreads the field, allows him to find the opening over the middle. An encouraging thing was the blocking ability of Jace Sternberger. Jace Sternberger came in, and I was watching him. He played maybe 10, 12 plays, and he actually stuck his nose in some linebackers and made some great seal blocks. That is interesting. Could they develop someone like that over the next 6 games, kind of like in 2010 Starks, the running back, came off the PUP list, came out of nowhere, and just kind of took him to the Super Bowl, having that running back that's solid. Could Sternberger be that guy?
The rookie, a high draft pick, injured, and as you say, obviously making a contribution. Gary, from the perspective of the offense, and in particular Aaron Rodgers, I mean, we all know if this guy plays at an MVP, he's going to have to carry him, is he not? Because I think what we're saying is nobody expected they were going to be 8-2. A lot of people think 8 wins for the entire season. But here they are, so we talk about how far they can go. I would think it's got to be, in the final analysis, on the hands and the shoulders, if you will, on the arm of Aaron Charles Rodgers.
Well, one would think that, but it feels like to me that they're not necessarily moving away from Rodgers, but it seems to be more by committee. I mean, like I said before, no touchdown passes in this past game, but they get a win. That's kind of strange for me, for being a Packer fan and watching Aaron Rodgers. This offense feels like, if you get Devontae Adams back, he's going to get his touches.
Over 100 yards, that was huge. Huh?
Right, but what ends up happening is that you were throwing a lot of footballs to Aaron Jones, and he didn't get that many. Well, he didn't get any receptions at all in that game. So I think they're evolving, trying to figure out listen, this Shanahan offense, if you go back to the dad, right, and with the Denver Broncos.
Mike Shanahan, right.
It's really about the run game. I mean, that's the basis of this offense is all about with Terrell Davis. You remember that, all those guys?
That Super Bowl.
Yeah, so it's built around the run game. And, John Elway gladly said, you know what, I've never gotten to a Super Bowl. Terrell Davis, come do it. We could be at the point with Aaron Rodgers where he said, you know what, I want to get back to the Super Bowl, and it doesn't really have to be all about me. I've got these 2 young guys in Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones. They're really good. I'm going to rely on them just a little bit more than I have in years past.
And yet, like Elway, and remember the helicopter, the twirl, and in that Super Bowl win over the Pack, he makes enough plays. And Rodgers certainly did. He danced around. He made throws. He missed some throws.
Yes.
So you know what? You've got me thinking. And the committee thing is probably a good thing.
It is. I talked to Greg Van Rotten, the offensive lineman, former Packer, the offensive lineman. He was the one that tried to grab Christian McCaffrey and take him into the end zone on the final play of the game. And he had a couple interesting points. I talked to him for about 3-4 minutes after the game. He said on that final play, he said that Fackrell blew by him. And Fackrell was out of position.
He was, yeah.
And they didn't expect him. He came and missed him. And then McCaffrey got past him. Smith got him, but then he ran right into Van Rotten. And when he did, Van Rotten tried to throw him over the line.
And didn't he pin his arm so he wasn't able to really get outstretched?
Sure.
Talking about McCaffrey and maybe that's
it was that, and he said that they couldn't replay. You couldn't see anything on the field because of the snow. And he said that he knew the replay if they wouldn't overturn it.
Right.
I also asked him, what's the difference in the Packer defense? And they stopped McCaffrey. How did they do it? And he said they brought extra players up in the box. They brought the safeties and the linebackers up about 3 yards off the box to stop McCaffrey. They did a relatively good job. But then again, I go back to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is the best run stuffer the Packers have, because he said the Packers controlled the ball in the second quarter, kept Carolina off the field. They said they have a ground and pound offense with McCaffrey where they give him the ball 30 times.
Yeah.
They couldn't do it because they were behind, and because they didn't have the ball. So then I finally asked him about the Smiths. What do you think about, are they a big factor? And he said, the key to the Smiths is there's two of them. We can do things to chip, or we can do things to scheme for one of them, but then the other one comes in. He said that's the problem that Green Bay presents, the two Smiths.
Right.
Gary, the big chasm we've talked about, although they were 4-0 without Devontae Adams, getting him back, his 100 yards, obviously huge, but they have been able to find a way, throwing to the backs, as you point out, doing it by committee. So should we not be quite as concerned that there really isn't a second option and not much of anything has happened among the wide receivers in the last few games?
Right. So I think if you look at MVS, I mean, he's disappeared. I mean, we haven't seen him, and we know he's a deep threat, but he didn't play much.
He might be Corey
game.
Bradford, huh?
Yeah,
Injuries notwithstanding, Keeper's a little disappointing.
Right. We don't know. I mean, Geronimo Allison's had a okay season, and so, but I think what I mean, if you watch the San Francisco 49ers the other night playing the Seattle Seahawks, and you watch that offense, the 49ers offense, and it was Shanahan's offense, it was all about quick passes. The ball was getting out of Garoppolo's hands so fast, and that's the basis of this offense. They've got about 3 running backs in San Francisco that they utilize and that they run. I watched that offense. It looked very similar to what the Green Bay Packers, I think, want to be. The Packers aren't there yet. I mean, that's what's so amazing about this team offensively. I don't think they're there yet. I mean, but they still have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And you're right, if he needs to save it, he can, no doubt about it, because Garoppolo is not Rodgers. But I think this offense is developing right in front of our face. They have a lot of different ways they can beat you. I think that's tough for defenses because they don't know who to stop. I mean, is it going to be Devontae Adams? Is it going to be Jamal Williams because he can catch the football in the backfield? Is it going to be you talked about Jimmy Graham. Maybe now Jimmy Graham in the second half can be like the go-to guy. Sternberger, you talk about him. Maybe now they interject him into the offense. Maybe he can be the go-to guy. So they have a lot of different ways to beat you offensively.
What did you think of the Packers' decision to try to score at the end of the half with 2 seconds left and LaFleur's play? Obviously, I mean, it seemed as if the cadence of Rodgers, I don't know, but man, right, there was no chance.
Right. So I'm an old school guy. I mean, you got
Kick
all
the
these
field goal,
well, yeah, right. You got all
kick
these different kind of things that they look at, numbers, chart. To me, take the points.
Yeah.
You take the points, you're at home, you go up. Now you don't really have to worry about that play at the end where they're trying to score. Just take the 3. But you know what? He was committed. Here's what I like about it. At Lambeau Field, they cheered like crazy when they came out to go for that thing. On social network, they didn't like it so much on social network. Yeah. But listen, those guys are bought into Matt LaFleur, what he's selling. They were confident that they could get it done. And Matt may be right. Maybe there was a wrong play that was called. Normally when you get in those types of situations, those are special situations, special plays that you normally don't work on all the time. I mean, they're not within the offense. Like your 2-point plays, you kind of work on those plays maybe Friday or Saturday or Thursday, but it's not a play that you run all the time. It's a specialty play. So just maybe their timing was off, or maybe they got a defense that they didn't think they could get. I think that's why Matt came out and said, you know what? I would have done the same thing, but maybe I would have ran a different play.
Great perspective. John, on the other side, Carolina scores, and they decide to go for 2. You were again in that Panthers locker room. What were they telling you?
Well, this is Ron Rivera, this is Greg Van Roten, and this is Greg Olson. They all said the same thing. They said that we have a 50% chance of making a 2-point conversion. So we needed 2 scores. If we could get that first one, then we could come and we could kick an extra point and win by 1. So that they said they could win then. But if they thought that with the wind swirling, with the extra point being back 15 yards, it's not a sure thing anymore. So you're more likely to go for 2 twice to tie the game at that point than kick the field goal. So they're all in lockstep, all agreeing to it. Something Gary said jogged my memory in terms of taking the points or going for it. I saw all the home games in the Mike Holmgren era. Mike Holmgren always took the points.
Yes.
He never faked a field goal. He never faked a punt. He's going to do it. And I remember the catastrophic going for it was in the playoff game against Philadelphia in 2004 Green Bay was up 14-0. They're on the 1-yard line, 4th and 1. All they had to do is kick a field goal to go up 17-0. Sherman went for it, didn't get it. The whole thing changed. It was 14-7 at half. Always take the points.
Yeah.
That's learn that from Holmgren.
And always keep an eye on Professional Construction, Inc. They are our partners here on this podcast. Michelle and Mike Grau, 15 years in business, a family business. They do the best work possible. They're involved in the community. We'll talk much more about that as time moves on here at WSS. Our partners, WisconsinSportsStream.com. Gary, any final thoughts from Packers, Carolina? We'll take a break, and then certainly we'll talk about the Packers and the bye week and looking ahead to those Niners.
Yeah, my final thought would be, you touched a little bit on about the Califacro tackle. I mean, Blake Martinez, to me, I thought had been taking a lot of heat last week about him not making plays.
Right.
Listen, he's the quarterback of that defense. The reason why Califacro made that play was because Blake Martinez saw that position, saw that formation, and put Califacro in that hole to make that play. So a lot of people talking about Blake. Well, Blake doesn't make any tackles behind the line of scrimmage.
No.
Blake is not getting any interceptions. But what he does, he's very astute. He understands the defense. He understands the offense, what they're trying to do. Although he didn't make the tackle behind the line of scrimmage, he allowed his teammate to make that play. I think a lot of people are lost on, like, how did Fackrell get to where he got? Well, to me, that was by Blake understanding the formation, what he got, and put his teammates in position to make that play. He's a good linebacker.
Yeah. And he's a great commentator. He was an awesome player. Gary Ellerson, ladies and gentlemen, Spectrum News 1 with Leroy Butler and Dennis Krause, and also the catalyst to the big show, 105.7 FM The Fan from 2 to 6 for the Packers historian John Dodds, as well as Gary Ellerson, Tom Pipines. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you next time.